Hello, good afternoon. This makes a change, doesn't it? An afternoon session for Montague Island Books. But welcome to episode 36 of Montague Island Books. Now, for those that watched last week's, they will realise that one of our guests today was actually on the show, and that was Donna. And in that was the first of our Christmas 2021 special shows. And in that show, we looked at people that run their own book groups. So we had Donna and Linda. Today, this is the second of our Christmas specials, and I'm delighted to say that we've got some book publishers with us. And you will, I'm sure, recognise the people on screen. It is from Hobeck Books, Adrian Hobart and Rebecca Collins, and they are both sharing the same, they're both on the same screen, but together. We're trying to think of a better way of putting that then. But so a very good afternoon and welcome, Rebecca and Adrian.
Good afternoon, thank you so much.
Yeah, we're really pleased to be here.
Great to have you here, and thanks for agreeing to come on. So before we get into the idea of sort of packing you off to the island and seeing what you're going to be taking with you, I'd love to sort of ask you a sort of few questions, just regard from we're so used to on this show hearing the author's viewpoint, and it was good last week, as I say, to hear that from people who are running book groups. But yeah, I think it's even more interesting to hear from the publisher's point of view, because to be honest, most people don't really get to hear things from the publisher's point of view. So before we sort of go down my sort of questions, perhaps for those that are listening for the first time, you can just tell us a little bit about Hobeck and where you, how it all came together.
Yeah, I think the core to it is the fact that we came together to start with, and just to give you very, very quick description of how that happened. So we were both at university together, and dare I say it, we had a couple of late in the hello dog.
We've got a monster dog on the show.
That's the biggest Yorkie I've ever seen.
That's what we said on that date. Anyway, so we met. We had a couple of dogs at university, and we basically then drifted and lost touch. I mean, we made sort of a little bit of effort to stay in touch.
You wrote to me and I didn't reply.
Yeah. And we were both married, both got, I've got 2 boys, you've got 3. And I think, things unraveled for me. And on the night I got booted out by my missus for a week, I spotted something that Rebecca posted on Facebook.
I was making a cheese, cucumber and salad cream sandwich.
Nice.
Yeah. I can't stand salad cream. But anyway, I thought I'd comment. I was sitting there nursing a pint. I was in a really rough motel in Stockport, and drinking a pint about midnight, and sent this message. And to tell you, to cut the story short, basically in 3 weeks after that, we decided that we wanted to be together. Wow. And everything else followed from that. So that's about 4 years ago. And Hobeck was sort of brainchild about 2.5 years ago, I guess. We started thinking about it, and I was inspired to write, first of all, by Rebecca and her sort of background in publishing. She'd worked. Well, you tell them.
Yeah. So I'd mostly non-fiction, but I'd done lots of proofreading and copy editing as well. And when he said to me, I'd love to write, and I just said, go for it, do it. What are you waiting for right now? Yeah,
so I was approaching 50 and hadn't done it, and so I wrote her a short story as one of my efforts to try and get her to like me, and it kind of worked. Yeah. And so, initially, I think Hobeck was the thought was it would be to publish my own books, and but then it occurred to me, I heard an interview with Jasper Joffe of Joffe Books, and it felt like the right thing to do, putting our combined experience and skills, my years in the BBC, and I was on the cusp of leaving them,
and the audio as well.
Yeah,
and the audio,
and it just made sense to find other authors and publish them. So that's really what's been happening.
How it started,
first book was Robert Dawes, who was the first signing. Came to us really and sort of pushed us into signing a deal with him, which was really sweet of him, because I mean he's well established, and he fancied being sort of pioneer with us, and that's how that worked out, and that gave us the lift and the push that we needed.
Because initially when Robert approached us, we said, "Oh no, you're too famous." And he said, "No,
you're too famous. We're too amateur."
Yeah, and look where you are now. Yeah,
exactly. And if you think about it, I mean, we published the Rock series that, as it stands, the 3 books of the Rock, as republished. I mean, they've been with other publishers before. Was when was that? It was July last year.
Yeah, so 18 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's happens all so quickly. Now we have 17 authors and 30 odd books out there.
Yeah.
So it's been incredible, really.
And a house full of books.
Yeah.
Not just our own books, but Hobeck Books
too. Growing all the time. And you did mention a sort of part of it there as well about looking at not just at the publisher thing, but you also have like little side ventures as well. You've got the audiobook recordings, and also your podcast. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have a broadcasting background, so doing a podcast was a natural thing. And to be honest, one of the things I missed most about my old life. I've been a manager for about a decade, and I missed being on air. So it was perfectly natural. But before I left the BBC, and this is one of the reasons I got in trouble with them, was I discovered ACX, the Audible Creative Exchange, and started narrating books. And initially I kept that quiet, and when they found out, they weren't very happy. But eventually they gave me permission. But so I started narrating non-fiction books, particularly on sport, and then branched into fiction. So it was already established that I could do that. But in terms of the audiobooks that are out there now, we're using some of the authors are doing them themselves, and I do the editing, and they're doing a great job. So for instance, Allison Morgan
she's fantastic.
She is just a natural performer, doing a great job. And at the moment, Lynn LaVersha is doing hers, Blood Notes, and we've used for Wendy Turbin's Sleeping Dogs. We approached Judy Dakin, who is already a best-selling author with Joffy, but she's also an actress, so that seemed like a natural fit. So we're using third-party actors, and we've got a really exciting project coming up at the moment. So we released Jenny Ensor's Silenced a week ago or so, and that's going to be a 3-way narration. So there's 3 different perspectives, 3 different characters telling their story, and 2 of them are quite young and sort of urban. One of them's a mixed race character. So we've got a fantastic young actor who is new to the narration game coming in on doing that, and we've got a young lady who's in drama school doing the voice of Jessamine, who I knew from when she was about 3 years old. But it's going to sound really fresh and exciting. I mean, I'll be on it too, unfortunately. But,
like a dramatization rather than
a little bit,
sort of a hybrid, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, you could. One narrator could do all the voices, but it wouldn't be as authentic as hearing somebody who lives on those North London streets and has been touched by gang life. Getting somebody like that to do the voice is going to be so much more powerful. And
I think you'll probably get a new audience as well, because I must admit I'm not really into audiobooks, but I do like radio dramas. So the fact that there's more than one voice, will certainly, having read the book as well and really enjoyed it, the fact you've got sort of more than one voice will probably make it, even the likes of me, have a listen to it. So
possibly. I think it'll sound really authentic and raw. It's going to try and strike a balance between a polished audiobook, but actually sounding like it's somebody from that situation that you find Luke in, in a St. Council estate, dragged into gang life. You want to sound, he needs to sound right. So that's why we've made that sort of artistic decision, I guess.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's something to look forward to next year. And what about a podcast? Tell people that haven't heard, the few people that may not have heard, tell us about the podcast.
Well, the Hobcast Book Show, we renamed it, but we're coming up for our 50th episode now.
Yeah.
And
Can't believe it.
I mean, yeah, it's amazing, really. And what we've chosen to do with that is, there are plenty of podcasts out there about books, and some really, there's some great ones. And there are lots of people, lots of authors and indie authors do podcasts, like Joanna Penn and Mark Dawson and all those sort of people. But not many publishers going warts and all about what life is really like running this business. And, then the other angle is it's a chance for us to have
we just have a chit chat. Yeah.
with a guest every week, and those guests have been really varied. I mean, we've gone from sort of Ian Rankin through to last week we spoke to an author we'd never met or spoken to or knew anything about until the day before. It was a kind of blind date, but
it was a absolutely fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
But the fact that we knew nothing about her, she didn't have a website either for us to go on, so we really were going in just a name and a book title. Yeah, I mean, for me, the podcast is a complete departure from anything I've done. I've never done any broadcasting, so I'm next to an expert, and there's me the first time. What do I say? What on earth do I do? How do I do this? And
I mean, your talent for podcasting is incredible. I mean,
I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I think that's it. And and also it gives us a chance in a safe environment to have a go at each other.
And that's fisticuffs.
We're also, we are pretty honest about the whole business, and the fact that I think that we've had a real battle the last 3 months to get things shifting in the direction that we want, and that might just be the run up to Christmas, but we suspect, and what we've been talking about a lot, is that the pandemic woke the traditional publishers up to the power of Amazon adverts and Facebook adverts, and that was the natural home for all indie publishers and indie authors, and suddenly the costs have gone through the roof. So the cost per click, the other day I was checking some of the categories that I'd chosen to market one of our most celebrated books, Waking the Tiger by Mark Whiteman, and they're now costing, rather than sort of in the 60 pence territory, which is very expensive anyway, if you can't count that click isn't going to necessarily lead to a sale, they're now £1.20. It's doubled in price.
Oh right. Wow. So that's a reflection.
Yeah, and I think that that's what. So how does a company like ours, and indeed any indie authors that aren't making millions already and got big war chests, how do you make the impact and get the sales? It's things like this, obviously.
Yeah, so we do talk a lot about those sort of challenges, don't we, in the podcast?
Yeah.
And we also talk about what we did in the last week and what we had for dinner and what the children are doing and where the cat is.
Yeah, we travel the country to go meet the authors.
I think that is the thing for me as well, is the fact that you go and travel and visit the authors.
Oh, I love doing that.
Because you get to, because that is probably something that, I don't know, but I would imagine it's probably unique in a publisher going out to see the authors, rather than you would maybe expect it to be the other way around. You would be sat in your office and they would come in and see you. So it's great, and I think that adds an extra dimension, because they're getting to know you in their sort of natural surroundings,
right? But
also you're getting to know them a lot more.
Well, can I let you into a little secret?
Go on.
We get fed when we go and see them. So. Allison Morgan does a fantastic sort of Mediterranean lunch, doesn't she?
We're going to have author ratings on food next, are we?
Yeah, it could be. If I was to have a private chef on the island, I think probably Lynn LaVersha edges it, but not by much.
Lynn LaVersha, if you're listening, Lynn, your food was amazing. When we
how about Hobeck Books presenting a author cookbook?
That could be our alternative to short stories next year.
Next Christmas we could do a recipe.
Yeah.
Because of all the people you visited, it doesn't even necessarily have to be like something really special. It can be just like, we went to see such and such a person and they give us this amazing sandwich. It could be whatever. It's like.
Well, we're toying with the idea of actually doing a book for next year, which details the journey from here. So,
written by us.
Basically our diary of the things that we get up to. So similar to the podcast, but a little bit more personal even, some real, because, there are times, probably once a month, we'll get to a point where we go look at the sales, or we'll look at some aspect of the business.
Each other.
And we'll just go, is all this hassle worth it? And the ups outweigh the downs, but there are just those days where it gets in and slams you on the head, and you think, you look at each other and you go, oh, really?
If you say that in isolation, that sounds really bad.
No, but I mean, the fact is that there's a threshold, isn't there? I mean, every day everyone approaches life, and it could be just a number of things that happen in a day where the things derail your day, and you just think, it could be, look, I mean, it's not a message to the authors, but the nature of being a publisher is that, and the way we do it, because we're not, as you say, we go and visit them, but at the same time we try and maintain a really energized and engaged relationship with our authors, and that is to say that we basically respond to their queries and gripes or suggestions almost to the minute they come in. Certainly within a couple of days.
When I'm watching MasterChef, I was like, oh, Brian's popped up.
You were amazing.
I've noticed that when I've been messaging you with my strange and weird questions, just as a reader.
Well, Bex does an amazing job of doing it, minute to minute. I need to sometimes think a little bit longer and take longer over replying, so that she tends to fence most of this stuff.
Sometimes in the post office queue.
Yeah.
Why not?
But yeah, I mean, and or if I've had a bad day in the studio, which surround is here, the audio studio,
a lovely booth.
And I can't get my words out. It's you can come out. I mean, woe betide anyone gets in my way, especially the cat.
Oh, the cat. Yeah. And she always goes to him for food. So when he comes out of the booth, she goes beeline straight.
Yeah, nagging, really, really vocal. You know what a cat's like when they're hungry.
Yeah, definitely. No leaving you alone. So that sort of leads on to one of my sort of next questions. And as I say, because we don't often get to hear insight from a publishing point of view, and this is probably putting you on the spot a little bit, but what's the best and worst parts of being a book publisher?
I think the best feeling in the world is opening those boxes from the printers when you see the books, all that work that goes in before you see the physical version.
Yeah.
Is huge, and
it's a bit like an iceberg.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people. I don't blame anyone, but I think people don't appreciate just the level of detail that goes into getting that to that point.
And sometimes even before we see a manuscript, an author might have been working on it for 3 or 4 plus years. Sometimes.
Sure. I think that's a pleasure. The other one is when you get an absolute golden manuscript come through.
Oh, we get so excited.
Yeah, that must be amazing.
If one of us is for example, if I'm reading it downstairs and he's upstairs, I will run up the stairs and go,
that's literally what she does.
And he'll say, you like it?
Yeah. I think that is such a good feeling, finding a real gem, and yeah, I mean, because I have such a bad attention span, I have ADD, and as a result of that, if I get to the end of the book when I've got the manuscript through, and I haven't had to force myself to do it, if you like, then I know we've got a really good one. So that's wonderful. And I think also there's the element of, I would say that the pleasure and the pain of doing this is creative collaboration. And when things are going well and everyone's in harmony with the authors and whatever, that is a great feeling of togetherness, teamwork. But sometimes that isn't possible. There are going to be creative differences, or are going to be arguments over the pace at which we're proposing to publish something, or even in the editing stage, if we decide to add commas or other, or interfere grammatically, because we feel that, it doesn't necessarily, we're always thinking principally not, it's about we're thinking of the readers, really. And so almost everything we suggest is about making it a greater pleasure or ease for the reader to enjoy. And that can sometimes cause problems, because, if you're a creator, as an author myself, someone says to me, I don't like that sentence structure. Yeah, you take it personally. You do. I thought about this very carefully, but there are times when behind the scenes, we're not always in harmony with our authors, and that's the hardest thing, because we've had to give some people really tough feedback sometimes, sometimes on taste and decency issues, which keep shifting because culture's changing all the time. So what was acceptable 5 years ago isn't acceptable now, and that's really tricky.
And sometimes it is about a comma.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, there is a limit. We're always trying to judge how far can we push this without really destroying the relationship. Because sometimes we really had to go for it.
But I think it's a compliment to the author, isn't it? If we push them, we're actually saying to them, we think you can take this.
Yeah.
And we think you can learn from this.
Yeah.
And you're recognizing the effort that they put into writing the book by putting the effort in yourself. I think that's what shows.
That's really well put. Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, I think that's the key thing, is that we want to make sure that everything that gets a Hobeck sort of logo on it is as the best we can possibly make it within the resources that we've got.
Even the cups.
Yeah, even the mugs. That's right. Yeah, we love the mugs. Yeah, and that's not easy, and it's also, we could cut corners. There are lots of corners. It's tempting sometimes when you think about producing a book. We're committing to just getting it printed is going to cost us overall, with the market, with the element of cover design, editing, 2 rounds of editing very often, and the actual printing costs and all those elements. You're looking at a minimum spend of about 1,500 quid. Now that's a lot of copies with the sort of margins that ebooks get, or indeed paperbacks get. You have to shift a lot of copies to make the money back. But that's before you spend on marketing. And as I've just explained, it's gone up and up and up. So that's the conundrum. But we won't scrimp on quality.
No,
and you can tell. You can tell on that. So, what would you? So we've heard lots of good points. What for you is a bit that you sort of dread? Which is a bit of a process where you think, I don't want to do that today.
Well,
it's very easy, isn't it? That one. We've been doing it this week.
Yeah, so I don't like turning people down, especially if it's a really well written book, and also if they're a really nice person as well, but it's just not right for us at this particular time, or within the genres that we publish. Whatever reason it is, I hate writing those emails.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a little easier than others. Sometimes, a lot of, a fraction of our submissions are just trash, really. And we try and be polite and constructive, but there are times when you just want to say, just never ever contact us again. But you don't say that. You seek help.
Don't give up your day job.
No, I don't wish to be rude, but sometimes there's some they're not the best, but when it's really close call.
Oh, we've had a couple, haven't we? Yeah. We've discussed it a lot amongst ourselves before we've even made the decision and written the reply, and
it's agonizing.
It's hard. It's really hard. You feel the pain,
and we know how much everyone's put into it. And when you send something off, and it's the same when I was, you're applying for a job, or you're sending something in for a competition or whatever, you're even buying a lottery ticket, you invest a lot of hope in it. But with a novel, it's such a personal thing.
Oh gosh, yeah. Now, you mentioned just earlier about genres. So what genres would you say for somebody who's new to sort of Hobeck, what genres would you say that you cover?
We could do the podcast style.
Should we do it? Do you want to do it like that? Okay.
Crime.
Thrillers.
Mystery.
And suspense.
Mystery and suspense.
Yeah, it's a pretty broad church, but I suppose our biggest category in that is crime.
Definitely crime.
Police procedurals. Thrillers. We've got a few of those.
Psychological thrillers.
There's a mix, isn't there?
That's a big thing at the minute, isn't it? Psychological thrillers are
I think that's tailing off a little. I think that that market is, it's had good 5 years.
Oh, I don't know. I still love them.
I know you do, but I don't think they're selling in the numbers they were. It's. I think cozy, thanks to Richard Osman, and certainly in the UK, has come back in a major way, and lots of publishers are jumping back on that bandwagon. In terms of our thrillers, then you got the psychological thrillers, the quite sort of small domestic. Like
Linda Huber.
Yeah, Linda Huber writes really well those sort of things, and Linda Verscher, it's a sort of mixture. Sort of a claustrophobia. Karina Swan, again, a claustrophobia within a family or in a small community, and then some of them are big sweeping thrillers. The biggest sort of scope is Ollie Jarvis's The Genesis Inquiry, which has been our biggest hit to date, I would suggest. Sort of Dan Brown meets John Grisham. Somebody described it, but better.
Got that bit on the end, but better.
More literate, maybe.
Because I didn't like Dan Brown.
No, I mean, everyone had to read it, but it wasn't the best piece of read. It was a brilliant piece of plotting.
Great story, but
and good marketing.
It was compulsive, but it was so that's and then you've got someone like Anthony Dunford, who is bringing us a combination of sort of the themes of conservation, but in a sort of kick-ass special forces kind of way in Kenya, where you got a character who goes around taking revenge against poachers and things
sort of
like that.
Action adventure.
It's fantastic.
Very contemporary.
It's very different. Would you mind? I've just got to take a call. It's
it's the doctors. So
Rebecca for a minute.
You have to talk to me for a bit.
That's one of the things about doing interviews during the day, isn't it? Because I keep thinking, please, nobody come and knock on the door.
Well, we're actually expecting a delivery, and I said, well, if they come while we're in here, we won't hear them for a start because we're in the soundproof booth.
Well, I've spent a lot of time asking you. I've got even more questions. We will wait until Adrian comes back, so I'll put sort of another question, a question for you to answer. You hear a lot of people sort of, a lot of publishers and what they say, please leave a review on, Amazon or Goodreads or whatever it might be. As a publisher, what do reader reviews mean to you?
Well, there's many levels to this, because first of all, we want to know what people think. We love to see what people think, because when we get a submission, we have a good feeling about that book, but it's almost sort of confirmation that we were right about that book. So I love it. I get addicted to it. I'm constantly refreshing Amazon reviews, and of course it does help other readers. So I like the fact that as a reader, I look on Amazon. If I'm looking at a book, I will have a browse of the reviews to see what other people think, and that, in a way, that saves us doing it. That's a job that's done by other people. And also, of course, if you have good reviews, it's going to help sell the book. So it's vitally important. And people do put a lot into the number of reviews, the number of 5-star reviews that they see. And, it does have a basis on their decision whether they're going to buy the book. So, yeah, the reviews are very, very important.
How do you feel about the 1-star reviews that say Amazon failed to deliver my book?
Oh, that drives me potty. Or a picture of the packaging with a tear in it.
Yeah.
1 star. But then if they write that down, that's fine, because if you're looking at that and you see that review, you realise there's no reflection on the quality of the book. But if they just put 1 star rating because of that with no explanation, I think that's fair.
That's a bit annoying, isn't it? But there are some great 1-star reviews. I don't know if you've had a look on Amazon, but and I'm sure you have. But there are some great 1-star reviews, just like one-liners that just like.
Oh, they're hilarious. Some of them, aren't they? Or something like just not for me.
Too many words. I've seen that one.
Too many words.
Adrian's back.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all right. So I've got more questions to ask, but I think we better probably move on with the other part of the show. Here all day. So for those people that haven't heard of the show before, why not, first of all? But Montague Island Books is it's a bit like a book version of Desert Island Discs, is the way I prefer to put it. And it basically were normally authors, but as I say, we're having sort of special events at the moment, which is why we've got Adrian and Rebecca here as publishers. And they select 7 books each to take to this remote island. Now, Montague Island is a fictional island off the coast of Cumbria. And where the name come from, it was the name of a fictional island that Mike Craven, M.W. Craven, created in the Curator book. So if you've read that, you'll probably sort of recognise it. And so that's where the sort of the name comes from. Now, as well as taking books, you can also take a CD, a DVD, a particular food or ingredient, and also a luxury item. So we're going to find out what Adrian and Rebecca are going to take. So of your 7 books, what would your first one be, Adrian?
Oh, mine. I love the writing of certainly the unreliable memoirs of Clive James. This is a book I read back in the 80s, probably first, and it's his description of his time at Cambridge University. So it's called When May Week Was in June, and it's a scream. I mean, he was just a brilliant wordsmith from the telly and his documentaries, and talking about Japanese TV shows. Margarita Parakatan or whatever he championed, but it's really well written. It's my hometown, so although I never went to the university there, I was well connected there because of my dad being a lecturer there as well as a scientist, and we all so a lot of the things he talks about I recognize, and I just love that book. So give me a good chuckle.
We're getting a bit of interference. Has one of you can you just move your phone away a little? I can hear a little bit of interference coming through every now and again, which might just annoy some of our listeners. It's gone now, so I think we're all right. But that's great. And as you say, Clive James, just an amazing man, and just like I've not read the book, but I can imagine it'll be well written, and there'll be some good stories in there.
I've got some of his poetry somewhere.
He was a very fine poet, but he takes the mickey out of Germaine Greer quite a lot, the fellow Australian import. And he wasn't allowed to use her name in the book, so he talks about Romaine Rand, but everyone knows it's Germaine Greer.
Romaine Rand.
That's one way of doing it, isn't it? That's great. So that's a nice start. And what about you, Rebecca? What's your first book going to be?
Well, I've actually got all my books off the
shelf.
All but one. So my first one is this one. Can you see it?
Adrian Mole.
Diary of Adrian Mole, age 13 3/4.
Yeah, I think Donna's liking to look at that one too.
So I was actually, I think, 11 years old when this was published. And everyone in my class or everyone in my year at school, we all read it, and we all thought it was the most amazing book ever, because it was quite open about the things going through his head as an adolescent.
Yeah.
So I read them all. I read all the Adrian Mole books, and I ended up with an Adrian as well.
Can you imagine, though, from my perspective? I mean, I love that book too, but I was just turning 13 when it came out. The only Adrian anyone ever knew. It's not that. Everyone assumed that I got my ruler out to measure my. They're not wrong. I don't think any teenage boy didn't at that time.
So listen to the next Hobcast for more information.
I'd like to say think of a number, then double it. But
That's great. So have you both read that since it first came out? Have you both
no, I haven't read it afresh. I mean, I first encountered it through the Radio 4 adaptation, which was just brilliant. And then, of course, there was the TV series, which was all right.
I liked the TV.
Well, it's funny because the guy who played Adrian Mole, unless I'm terribly mistaken, was a guy called Moz D, and he ended up being a very senior manager at 5 Live.
Really?
So I rubbed shoulders with him.
That's funny. He was a great Adrian Mole.
He was the number 2 at 5 Live for years.
Wow,
and then
that was a bit of a change in direction, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. He gave up the acting, but yeah, that was
No, I read it. I think I read it about 10 or 15 times as a teenager, but I haven't read it recently, so I might do that.
Yeah, when you're on the island, you will have the
opportunity.
I'll be able to, yeah. That's great. So 2 great first choices. So we're now on to book 2. So what's your second book going to be, Adrian?
Well, this is a bit of a departure. Okay, so it's called Murder on the Darts Board by Justin Irwin, and it is. I think it's largely out of print now. You can still get copies on secondhand
eBay
booksellers or whatever. It was published in, I think, 2008, and Justin Irwin, by sort of profession and career, was a chief executive of a leading charity, national charity, and he decided that he was bored of that sort of side of life, so he decided to become a professional darts player and give himself a year.
Wow.
To join the professional dart ranks and see, he said, how difficult can it be? Because he always wanted to be able to compete with the best. And he's right in saying that one thing that anybody can do if they throw darts long enough is eventually they're going to get a 180, no matter how, it'll be a fluke, but that's the maximum piece of skill that you can do with 3 darts. And so he figured that how difficult can it be if he gave himself 6 hours a day of practice? Could he compete? And it didn't really work out as he hoped. But there is, I think, I used to. There's page 73. Is the funniest piece of writing I've ever read, and it's about his encounter with another sort of county player. And this bloke had Tourette's. And so I've never seen the C word used in one page more often than this. Every time the guy threw the dart, he used the C bomb.
Wow.
And it's just the funniest thing. So that's my second one, because again, I like to have a good laugh.
You don't have to get in touch with and republish that book.
Yeah. I actually, you're right. I would love to know what happened, but it's a brilliant insight into that world of the prosaic and the darts, and he fell out with Phil the Power Taylor, which was another thing, because he said, he went on radio and said darts is a simple game. What he meant was it's a simple game to understand. The principles are very easy, but what he didn't say was it's a very complex thing to master. And all the darts players interpreted it the first way.
They got the hump.
They got the hump, and they basically he had a massive on-air radio argument with Phil the Power Taylor, who has a short temper at times. So it didn't go well.
That's great. I've never heard of that book before, but that's definitely one to look out for. So that's great, and great story with it too. So Rebecca, what's your second book?
Catch 22 by Joseph Heller. Ta-da!
And what is it about that book that makes you want to read it again?
Well, it's probably the first adult book that got me really, really into reading. So I read a lot as a child. I read a lot of Enid Blyton and a lot of
Mallory Towers.
Well, so all that sort of stuff, I just raced through all the series. I read what Katie did and Little Women and everything. And then I think I was about third year secondary school, which is year 9. And English teacher said, right, okay, today we're going to study the first page of a book. And it was this one. And it's got one of the best first lines I've ever read. So I would like to read it to you.
Oh, yes.
It was love at first sight. The first time Yossarian saw the chaplain, he fell madly in love with him. Mm-hmm. And then we went on, we studied the first page. We spent a whole double lesson studying it. And I thought, I've got to read this book. And I did. And it's brilliant. And so I can't wait to read it again because I haven't read it for a long time.
Great. Wonderful. That's a great story. You've actually brought up something that I've sort of thought about a lot. When you're saying, your teacher was quite forward in a way by sort of saying, well, you don't read something you've not read before and, maybe a different genre and things like that. Have either of you ever read like what we call, I think the proper term is a naked book? So whereby somebody has sent you, I suppose a little like your manuscripts in a way, but without you knowing any information about the book, the title or the author. Have either of you ever sort of tried going down that route? So you don't know the genre, you don't know the author, you don't know any of the bump, you just get given a brown paper package with just lots of pages.
No, I don't think I have.
No.
To be honest, I mean, there are times when I start reading a manuscript and then I'm sort of having to run back to get the synopsis out and figure out what's going on. But no, not in the, I mean, in the sense that we get books sent to us, because they're within certain genres, we know that, and I'll know the name of the author. But I often don't read the covering letter or the synopsis. I don't want to spoil that first read, because if it hits me and sucks me in within the first paragraph, then it's good. You don't need, it's always a bit disappointing, isn't it, when you have to keep going back to the back cover to figure out what's going on. That's always a warning sign, I think. We're almost taking it naked, but not quite.
I mean, I suppose a similar situation is, I'm not going to name any names, but somebody sent us a manuscript recently and they didn't say who it was by. They just said, here's a mystery manuscript. Ooh. And we both started reading it. I think I read a bit more than you. Yeah. And I replied to say, I think it's really good. It's very well written. And then that person replied and said, I wrote it. So I suppose that's sort of...
Well, actually, no, it was we wrote it.
We wrote it. So
husband and wife team.
Yes.
Wow.
So I just thought at that time, it's a good job I didn't say, why did you send me this?
Yeah, go and get help.
Because I think there's, I don't know if it's a Booker Prize or one of the big sort of book prizes, and the judges now get the books as naked copies, so they don't know who's written them, no front cover or anything, and they base the sort of the choices on the actual book rather than thinking, well, that's a good author, we'll give him an extra vote.
No, I think it's a really good idea.
But
prizes and stuff, definitely.
Yeah, but something a little bit different. So that's great. Anyway, on with the book choices. So we're now on to book 3. So what's yours going to be, Adrian?
I suppose it's slightly related to the previous one. This is a book called Playground of the Gods by Ian Stafford, who I don't know what he's doing nowadays, but certainly when he wrote it, he was a staff sports writer at the Daily Mail. What he did was something similar to Justin Irwin in a way. He decided that he would get himself fit. He was turning 40, I think, put himself through a lot of physical sort of regime, and then try and persuade the world's best sports people to compete with him.
Wow.
So he took on challenges such as playing cricket for Australia, in a warm-up game ahead of the Commonwealth Games. He fought Roy Jones Jr., who was at that time the best pound for pound boxer in the world. He raced motor racing against Eddie Irvine, who was with Ferrari, and he rode in a boat. He was alongside Steve Redgrave against Matthew Pinson and James Cracknell. So it's a fascinating book because, you know, there's partly the sort of diary of him trying to get into shape and develop the skills needed to justify taking all these risks, and then there's the element of actually seeing these greats close up, or indeed getting battered in the face by Roy Jones Jr. It's an absolutely brilliant book, and he did a subsequent one which I can't remember who he competed against, but it was really fascinating. I mean, naturally his body broke down. He was in a terrible state physically because he just pushed it too far to try and get up to speed with people who've spent all their lives getting into shape. But it was really fascinating. He did manage, though, the one thing he managed to do, Eddie Irvine challenged him to, so they did the driving thing, and naturally Eddie Irvine was about 25 seconds quicker. But he then said, Eddie Irvine said, right, I want to know what sort of shape you're in. So they went on the rowing machine. And of course, he'd been preparing and working with Steve Redgrave. He absolutely battered Eddie Irvine on the it's a great book. And again,
it was either a very brave or very mad man to do.
Yeah, I also think it's brave of the people who decided that, you know, because they took some persuading, but you know, the chance of humiliation, or indeed, because you know, sports people live in a hermetically sealed environment where everything's dedicated to performance, at least the good ones do. To actually let an outsider in and see them in the raw, if you like, day-to-day preparations and things, is quite brave. So yeah, it's a really worth looking at if you can find it.
Yeah, you'll have to find out what he's doing now, see if he's still alive after all that.
He'll be about 60 now, yeah.
But yeah, another very interesting book. So what's your third book, Rebecca?
Well, I'm returning back to childhood a little, so
why not?
It's all down here. Now, this is a book that I bet nobody has ever heard of, but I absolutely loved it. It's called The Greyhound by Helen Griffiths. Now, one of the reasons I chose this is because it was a library book that you know when libraries sell off their old stock.
You mean you're object from the library, Rebecca? Is that it?
No, I didn't come from the library, but I used to get quite a lot of my books from those little sales they had in the corner, you know, 10p a book. And I discovered some amazing, fairly unknown writers and stories through that way. And I think I just love the idea that there are lots of writers out there who aren't in the sort of the top 100 most popular people, but have had an impact on people's lives if they've read them, like me. You know, I still treasure it. I still got it, and it was a tatty little copy.
So tell us a little bit about what it's about.
As far as I can remember, it's quite a simple story. It's a boy. He lives below a chip shop in sort of post-war Britain. So there's a lot of bomb sites around, a lot of which he sort of explores by himself, and he discovers this greyhound, this lost greyhound, and they become friends. But his family say, we can't keep him, we live in a tiny flat on top of a chip shop. And it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But I won't give away the story because go find it and read it.
No spoilers. We've got to find it. Yeah, we've got to find it first. But
I used to, every time I wasn't very well, I would reread it. It was comfort reading. So if I'm unwell on the island and you're not able to look after me, I will read my book.
Exactly. Yeah, good plan that. So a little bit of self-medicine as well in there. Yeah. So we're now on to book number 4. So what have you got next for us, Adrian?
Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe.
Right. And why that one?
It was one of those where I bought it to look intelligent. In the early 90s, I guess it would have been, or maybe in the late 80s, and I think I was trying to impress a girl, by having some heavyweight literature knocking around. And,
why does that not surprise me?
It's a sort of that fellow. Anyway,
he's not changed then, Rebecca.
No, not at all.
I remember where the context now. I took it on my world trip, so I just finished my A-levels, and I went, and prior to university, I went off to Australia and around the world, kind of thing. And I think it was one of the books I picked up in the United States when I was over there, seeing some relatives, and it was my companion during that sort of 4-month trip, really.
So you could sit on the train. Was an attractive lady there?
Well, it was Greyhound Australian buses. What were they called? No, they were Greyhounds.
They were Greyhound. Oh, I see.
In Australia, they went bust shortly after I travelled with them. Deluxe
kangaroo
coaches.
buses, maybe.
No, they were called Deluxe, and and they used to play a lot of movies. They had the TV screen by the driver, and but they were hilariously bad. The sort of preamble programs, and I can't remember the name of the bloke who used to present them, but he was obviously some sort of minor Dale Winton style Australian celebrity. It was hilarious. But the best thing about those bus trips, not so much the book, which I loved, because of it is a masterclass in satirical writing, really. The best thing about those trips were the drivers, who used to give us warnings, and they get on the microphone and go, "G'day folks, we're just coming into Darwin, and just to warn you guys, I wouldn't advise going swimming, because if the solies don't get you, the bidies will." And then you sort of have to translate that, and you figure out that you mean saltwater crocodiles also live in the sea alongside the sharks, and so something's going to get you. So, or on another trip, we went past a particular roadhouse, which dotted around the Northern Territory. These big
little shacks.
No, there's shacks full of beer, basically.
Oh.
And he goes, one on our right is particularly famous. It's where they do the I think, what was it called? It was the World Schooner Competition, and it's not a boat. It's a particular measure of beer. It's a can, quite a big one, and the idea was that you do that thing where you put a hole at the top and a hole at the bottom, and it comes gushing out at you. And he said last year the world record was broken 6 seconds by a moose. Someone had brought the beer. So. Those guys were legendary.
Isn't that amazing how one book that you read on the road, like across Australia, can put
trigger the memories.
memories of like coach driver commentaries.
Yeah. Well, here's the other piece of advice one of them gave us. He goes, "All right, folks, while you're in your chairs, please strap in. We had a bit of a problem the other day. A cow pulled out in front of my vehicle. I slammed on the anchors, and this is about putting a seatbelt on in the toilet. And this particular Sheila rolled down the centre aisle with her knickers round her ankles." So
you don't forget those kind of stories, do you?
No, you don't.
But I take it from all of that, you enjoyed the book.
Going back to Bonfire of the Vanities, I need to reread it.
Did you get any ladies?
Oh God, no. No, they saw me a mile off and said, "What a sued!" But and it was a difficult thing to carry around in a rucksack.
It's quite a big book, isn't
it? It's huge. Yeah, it's a whopper.
As long as it was a good book, that was the main thing. But you enjoyed it. That's good.
Yeah.
So, Rebecca, what's your book number 4?
My book number 4 is How Proust Can Change Your Life by Alain de Botton.
How what can change your life? I can't think I see it because
Proust, isn't it?
Proust, yeah.
Yes, How Proust Can Change Your Life. Right. Now, the reason is because I have read some of Proust's massive 7-volume masterpiece.
Wow.
À la recherche de temps perdu.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Blimey. I've read the first 3. And it's one of those things, it's an absolutely fantastic book, but each one is about 600 pages long, each volume, and there's 7. And so if you want to cut
Condense it.
I didn't finish it. I've still got 4 volumes left to read, so I can't tell you.
Wow.
So this book, which is quite thin, shows you how the lessons that you could learn from reading the 7 volumes. So that's why I've got this one, because there's a lot of he was an amazing writer. I mean, he did go on a bit, obviously. He was a bit of a waffler, but he was amazing. He was an observer of people and very, very minute detail about everyday life. But if you haven't got the time to read 7 volumes, which I probably would do on the island, actually. But this is a great book and I loved it. And I would like to read it again because I feel like I need some more life advice.
I wonder if any of it'll tell you how to survive on the island. You know, that'll be.
I don't know, 19th century France.
Yeah, you might take a different perspective on island life, having read it on the island. So we shall see.
And I quite like philosophy. I don't read really deep philosophy, but I like the sort of philosophy and applying it to everyday life, you know, the sort of
philosophy.
Yeah, so a bit like popular science, but in philosophy. So that's what that is. It's just sort of you know.
Great.
That's my 4th book.
Good choice, great choice. So we're now down to book number 5. So those suitcases should be filling up and getting quite heavy now with all these choices. So what is your 5th choice, Adrian?
This one is really going to weigh me down because it's a biggie.
It'll keep him occupied for a while, so it's good.
I'm a big quiz nut, and so my choice would be The A to Z of Almost Everything by Trevor Montague.
Wow.
It's about
Montague Island.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. It's about 40 quid, if I remember rightly. It's a big chunky book. It's upstairs somewhere.
Oh, the green one.
Yeah, one of the boys has looked at.
Yes, Luke took it to Anglesey.
And it is one of these things where if you're an egghead or you are, one of the chasers, I mean, this is your Bible, right?
Yeah.
So it does list almost everything conceivable in terms of, potted biographies of every author, the significant author or composer and all their works and, all that stuff. And then it's just basically loads and loads of lists or descriptions of kind of general knowledge that you need to know if you want to be a mega quizzer.
It's a good toilet book.
It is.
Yeah.
I've always had one of these minds where I can't concentrate for terribly long, but I always hoover up, little bits from all over aspects of my life. And I kind of synthesize that into looking intelligent at times. Trying to impress, intellectual
the ladies again.
That's it. Yeah, little star facts. Yeah.
Yeah, but I love a quiz. I'm insanely competitive when it comes to quizzing. So
you should see him watching University Challenge.
Oh God.
Well, the trouble is,
I watch it, but I don't join in.
Well, I can't with any of the science because even though my dad was a scientist, I got D, an E, and a U in my sciences at O level. So I was a massive disappointment to my father in those terms. I'm much more on the arts side of things. But I was hopeless. Anything that needed maths, for instance. So University Challenge is just full of maths stuff, isn't it? And element. I mean, you need to know your periodic table which way, don't you, to get a starter.
So but I think my eldest son is very good on the maths and the chemistry and the geography. It's amazing, his geography knowledge. So if they were on a team together, if they went to the same university, they'd be fine.
It'd be great.
Well, it's funny you say that. I did a quiz with my 2 nephews who were early teenagers, I suppose. Actually, one of them was even 12, I think. Wow. And one of them is a maths genius, and he's at Trinity College, Cambridge, doing maths. And we went to this quiz in my village, and the quiz is full of teams from academics from Manchester University because it's a very popular place to live just outside of Stockport. And we wiped the floor, these 2 teenagers and myself, with the rest of them. I could not believe it. We'd never been there before. And it was a really tough quiz, but I had Rain Man next to me, and he was just
Great, but it sounds a great book. So is this something, because obviously I would imagine if it's trying to cover lots of different things, is it your book that sort of gets updated every few years? Or?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's one guy as well, isn't it?
It's just one guy. Yeah, he's one of the main question setters for a lot of these quizzes. So yeah, Trevor Montague, he's won 15-1, I think, in the past and stuff like that, as you might expect. Yeah, it's every 4 years, I think.
Right. Yeah, it's a book it would interest me, because I used to be, when I was younger, not done it so much lately, but when I was younger, I used to love going through Guinness Book of Records. I used to get at every year and was like looking at all the weird and wonderful things that are going on. So that was so I can see where you're coming from with that, but that's a good choice, and we'll definitely keep you give you lots to think about on the island.
Absolutely.
So what's your fifth book, Rebecca?
Right, so my fifth book is by Haruki Murakami, and it's the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle.
The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. And what is that all about? Because you can't really tell from...
She's trying to impress intellectual men now, isn't she?
Yeah.
I've chosen this one because it was the first book by Murakami that I read. I spent 2 years living in Japan at the end of the 90s, teaching English. So I read quite a lot of Japanese authors in translation there, and I really got into their style of literature, which is I suppose you'd call it slightly mystical, but still based in reality. And he is a great writer for that. He likes the idea of the blending of what's in your mind with what's reality, but it's still a real story. It's still got a plot and characters, and so this was the first one I read. He also always features a cat, which I love. For some reason, I don't know why. And so yeah, I would reread this one because I haven't read it for a few years. I would take them all if I could, but if I had to choose, it would be this one.
Interesting, very interested, and particularly as well, I imagine it'll bring a lot of reminders back from your time spent in Japan as well, when if you're back by reading the book. So yeah, that's great. So we're now getting down the list to book number 6. So what's your book number 6, Adrian?
This is a book that we recommend to our authors, and indeed sometimes to the authors who don't quite make it. It's a book called The Secrets of Story by Matt Bird, who has been a guest on our podcast in the past. So he's an American screenwriter, and it is the best book. I bought them all, ones on writing. And I almost put Stephen King on writing in this list. But I think in terms of, if you were to distill every bit of great knowledge in terms of how to create characters and tell a plot and all that stuff in one book, The Secrets of Story by Matt Bird has achieved it. It's just brilliant. And he's writing one about characters at the moment. In fact, I think it should be out pretty soon.
Yeah.
But and he's not a massive name, in terms of achievements and accolades and the big name projects. But he's got it down in terms of explaining what makes a great book. And it's basically, his thesis is this: get the characters right, the rest follows. And there's loads and loads of practical tips and suggestions and checklists and all that sort of stuff that you need to, go back over your manuscript and say, have you achieved this? Have you achieved that? Have you considered this? And I just think it, spoke straight to me. So yeah, The Secrets of Story by Matt Bird is a brilliant book.
Yeah, and we recommend it too. So lots of our authors, and some of them had already read it. I think a couple of them had already read it.
Yeah.
Very interesting choice, that, because being an advanced reader for Hobeck, I found that a lot of the, which really interests me, because I found that a lot of the stories, the characters lead the story.
Yeah.
With a lot of the things that you've sort of published. So that ties in greatly with that book. And I've heard of the Stephen King one, and it's on my TBR mountain, but I've not heard of that one. So that's an interesting one to make a note of, and I'm sure many of our listeners or watchers will be onto that one as well. So that's great. And what is your choice, Rebecca, for number 6?
Right. So I also dabble in art when I can. I have a degree and a master's in art. So I've chosen a highbrow art book.
Ooh.
It's called Looking at the Overlooked by Norman Bryson. And here it is. And so my specialism when I was studying art was still life. And it was partly because people have this view of still life as something quite old-fashioned and boring.
Bowl of fruit.
Bowl of fruit, exactly, a bowl of fruit. So I wanted to, when I was studying art, I wanted to bring still life, sort of bring it up to date and try and show people that it was actually much more interesting than just a picture of painting of a bowl of fruit. And so this book is about looking at still life and sort of realizing that there's a lot of messages in just a placement of objects on a table, and especially in the paintings of still life, that they weren't just saying, oh, look at me, I can paint a bowl of fruit and it looks like a real bowl of fruit, but there was symbolism and messages in there. Yes, so that's I would like to.
So when we think of still life, or when I think of still life, I think of a bowl of fruit. So give us something, a more modern take on that as an example.
Well, I think you could paint a bowl of fruit now, and it would have that sort of modern take on it just because you're painting it now. When I was doing art at school, I actually decided to do a modern version of a bowl of fruit. So what I did is, I had a bowl of peaches, and I painted one peach on one day, and then I left it for 3 or 4 days, painted the next peach, and then another 3 or 4 days. So they were gradually getting moldier and moldier and moldier.
I get you now, yeah.
So I nearly finished this painting and I was really pleased with it. It was one of the best things I did at school. When my mother went into the kitchen and thought, who has left this disgusting bowl of peaches in the kitchen, and threw it away before I'd finished the painting.
My God,
I've never forgiven her for that.
I bet. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because a modern fruit bowl would be completely different from one even 20 years ago.
It would be avocados and all sorts now.
You'd have kumquats and whatever it is,
even like a lime,
star fruit and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It would be all kinds of weird and wonderful fruits, but So you've got an unfinished masterpiece then, Rebecca.
I do. Somewhere in my mother's house, yes. Yeah, you could have asked me my A-level grade A because I got a B.
Wow.
Could well be, actually.
Wow, yeah, your mother will remember that one, man. Great story with that, though. And so we're now on to our final book choices. So what is number 7, Adrian?
Number 7, Danny, the Champion of the World.
Oh.
By Roald Dahl. I could have picked a lot of things from him, to be honest, because I think for my generation, I'm sure everyone's generation, really, he was the man in terms of children's writing. I mean, you start off. I remember the Mr. Men books were coming out when I was little, so when the fresh title came out, it was great excitement, and there was the railway stories. But then, getting into sort of 8-9 years old, we'd all competitively read Roald Dahl and try and get through the box sets or whatever was available. And what I love about Roald Dahl is that he didn't give an expletive about, he took risks. Some of that stuff is really, dark. Yeah. And, properly scary. Not maybe necessarily in Danny the Champion of the World, but it's a brilliant sort of, Danny and his dad sort of standing up against greed and commercialism and capitalism, really, isn't it? I mean, it's a sort of quiet little country revolution against the people who hunt the pheasants, the landowners. So it's interesting. I a couple of years ago, I got to meet. I'm trying to remember his name now. This is awful. I've forgotten his name, but anyway, he runs Chicken House Books.
Barry.
Yeah, I knew it's Barry, but I can't remember his
Barry F. Something beginning with F.
Can't remember.
Okay.
Anyway, Barry. I will look it up before the end of the podcast. Anyway, Barry has two great claims to fame. First of all, he was one of Roald Dahl's publicists, so I used to go on book tours with him, and sort of the scrapes they get into because Roald Dahl, enjoyed a drink, enjoyed an eye for anybody, was notoriously foul-mouthed when it suited him and all that sort of thing. So it was quite colourful. He also discovered J.K. Rowling and recommended her to Bloomsbury. So and the rest is history there. So I shall look up Barry's surname. But he was telling me, some great tales about what it was like to deal with Roald Dahl. I just love the way that he wrote his books, in his battered old Park and Knoll armchair in the back shed with a written in pencil, real old school stuff. And he was a brilliant writer of adult stories.
Yeah. Tales of the Unexpected.
Tales of the Unexpected. Short story collection is really good.
And also his autobiography books.
Yeah, and he wrote, people forget he wrote a Bond film. You Only Live Twice was Sean Connery one set in Japan.
Oh right, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And he also wrote poetry and some really amazing children's sort of quirky poetry, a bit like his children's books, very dark and but humorous as well.
Well, great for you to have that sort of background story to it as well. So I'm sure you'll enjoy reading that one on the island.
Yeah. I have a feeling my mum nursed Roald Dahl's wife as well.
Wow, your mum nursed Roald Dahl's wife.
I think, yeah.
Wow.
Barry Cunningham is
Barry Cunningham.
Well done. If you've got synesthesia like me, though.
Well done. So, final book for you, Rebecca. What's it going to be?
Well, this is actually a book I read this year because most of mine are sort of historic reads, but I read this year and I can't wait to read it again on the island because there's so much to it. It's one of the best books I've ever read. It's going to be in my top 10 of books of all time. Shuggy Bane.
I've heard a lot about this. Again, it's on my TBR mountain. I have got it on sort of a Kindle, but I've heard like really, really amazing reviews, and I've heard some not so good reviews. So it's be interesting to hear your sort of views on it.
Well, it was his first book, and for me, it is a masterpiece. It's based. It's fictional, but it's based on his own childhood in Glasgow. I think sort of in the 80s, on the edge of Glasgow, in the mining area. It is gritty. It is grim, but it's so full of emotion and really, really clear observation of people and their behaviour. The main character is a young boy. His mother is an alcoholic. Bringing him up, and he's got an older brother as well and an older sister. And I read it. Really, it's quite a long book, but I read it when we went to the Bloody Scotland Festival. So I read it in the car all the way there. Read it while we were there, and I read it in the car all the way back. I think everybody should read this personally because it is brilliant.
Right. Yeah. Well,
and he's just written another one which is out in April, I think, and I'm definitely going to read that too.
So I'll have to read it before the new one comes out in April then. So I'll have to bring that up a few levels on the old TBR mountain. But that's great. You've both got 7 amazing books and a massive range of different things from fiction to non-fiction to all kinds. So I'm sure you'll have much fun reading each other's books as well on the island. So we believe that on the fictional island of Montague that there is about an hour a day of electricity, but I only get an hour a day. But you're allowed to take a CD with you. Now, a CD can obviously be music, or it could be spoken word, or it might be a playlist you've knocked together yourself. So what CD are you going to take with you, Adrian?
Hunky Dory by David Bowie.
Great. And what is it about that you like the most?
Well, it's got Life on Mars on it, which is but actually one of my favorite of his songs, which is just a sort of bit of playful stuff in the studio. Beautiful acoustic guitar work on Andy Warhol, a song that Andy Warhol himself absolutely hated. But there's some great tunes on there. But Life on Mars, Rick Wakeman on the piano. I mean, it's just there isn't a better I think song by a British artist in the last 50 years. I think it's just everything. It's amazing. And I wept buckets when Rick Wakeman went on Radio 2 the day that Bowie died, and went onto the Elton John piano in Radio 2 and played. He hadn't played it since making the record. Wow. But he kind of obviously dusted it down and tried to remember how to play the piano part, and took us through the arrangement and all that sort of thing. I just cried and cried and cried. I cried for days when David Bowie died. And then Prince went, another one of my artists that was on that list of potentials. When he died a few months later, it was just too much. I was very fortunate to see them both live a few times.
Wow, great.
But yeah, Bowie, my original rock star, really.
And I think I saw Prince in Tower Records in Tokyo.
You think you saw him? Wasn't a lookalike.
Well, he was quite diddy.
He's tiny, yeah.
Yeah, he was quite a diddy man. He looked like Prince, and he was quite well dressed, and he had these burly men with him, and he was browsing. I don't know which section of the CDs, but he was browsing the CDs while I was in there.
Unfortunately, we will never know.
I know
whether it was him.
And I just thought, is that Prince?
As you do.
I did meet Bowie.
Oh wow!
So he was doing Jules Holland at Television Centre in the days when I used to work there, and it was still going. And he sort of came out of his dressing room, just casually, looking, as he would, and he said, "Well, sorry to bother you. Where can I get a good coffee?" And I said, well, it's not necessarily a good coffee, but it's a Costa. So
no, you don't like Costa.
So we went around back at what was called Stage Door at Television Centre. There was a little Costa coffee concession, and he bought me a coffee.
Wow.
And normally I tell the story by doing a really bad David Bowie singing impression, but when the old vibrato sort of, can you buy me a coffee?
That is one heck of a story to tell.
The thing about working there was just amazing, the sort of heroes that you would bump into. So I remember sharing a lift with Donny Osmond.
Is that a story you want to tell us?
Not really. But getting in one of my favorite moments for sort of bumping into a star was right in front of me it was just, again, another evening thing. I think All Saints were playing on Jules Holland, and so at that time Liam Gallagher was either married or going out with one of the Appleton sisters, and so there's this guy in a parka, fur hood, sort of in front of me, brown hair, sort of, and every word was like effing this and effing that, give me more chips, I want more chips, sort of. Yeah, palm on, something very
Harry Enfield.
Yeah. And there he was, yeah. And the other time was Lou Reed was in front of me, and he wanted an omelette, and they made them from cartoned eggs. And he just said, "You've not got real eggs. I want real eggs. I don't have carton eggs in an omelette. I want." So he threw an absolute, his sort of quiet New York tantrum, just kept going. I need real eggs. Go and get
Oh, wonderful stories. You're going to have to write. I think you're going to have to write your autobiography, Adrian. I don't know about other people.
But, rubbing shoulders with greatness, but never ever achieving it myself.
Thank you so much.
Love it. That's great. So what, I'm going to say, great CD, Hunky Dory from Bowie. So Rebecca, what's your CD going to be?
Well, I'm going to be very generous, and I'm going to let Adrian play his CD for 11 months of the year, and I don't want to listen to my CD for 11 months of the year.
Not Christmas music.
As long as I get December.
Go on.
A random Christmas compilation.
No.
So like Christmas.
Because I want to remember. Not that one, not this one. This was very good. I want to remember it's Christmas, and I want to sort of have the nostalgia of Christmases at home. And
I didn't know Pet Shop Boys has done a Christmas song. It doesn't often snow at Christmas, apparently, by the Pet Shop Boys.
Wow.
and I haven't heard Hot Chocolate's Brand New Christmas. Amazing.
Yeah, so I would like to be able to play my Christmas music for December. It's my birthday in December as well. So I'm going to be generous and let you have 11 months of Bowie.
Very firmly Bowie.
If I can irritate you with Christmas music for 1 month only.
I think Adrian will probably put up with 1 month for Christmas music if you can have 11 months of Bowie.
That's actually quite an interesting CD because it's like you say, it's some obscure songs on.
Yeah.
Adrian is like obsessed with this Christmas album. That'll be getting played on your way to Manchester today, I reckon. In the
You can borrow
it. He's got a new obsession now. Diverse Christmas songs, on a compilation CD. Well, that's great. Two great choices, very different. But
we are very different.
So next up, as I say, bearing in mind you only get an hour of electricity each day, so you don't have to take turns, and you probably won't be able to watch all of it, but you get to take a DVD. Now, obviously, a DVD can be a film, it can be TV series, it can be a music concert, whatever your choice is. So what is your DVD going to be, Adrian?
I was really torn. Both of them I was thinking of crime films. So I've gone with The Godfather.
Godfather, great, classic.
But I was really tempted to go with Get Carter.
I knew Get Carter was going to be the other one.
But you see, I can quote both. Almost
Get Carter.
You do. Yeah. Well, you're a big man. You're out of shape. It's it was a really difficult one, but The Godfather has just so much depth to it all the way through. It's just brilliant. But it's what I find remarkable about The Godfather. The more I learn about how it was made and the just the bizarre sort of coincidences. I mean, it was regarded by the studio as a complete mess and a disaster.
Wow.
And it's an absolute masterpiece. But there were so many problems. They had loads of problems filming it because the New York mob controlled the unions, and they kept trying to interfere and stop it being made and all this sort of stuff. And there were then some sort of, I think Marlon Brando ended up having to have a conversation with some mob boss, and after that, made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and everything was cleared up, and they all thought it was fantastic. They love that movie. They love Goodfellas, but yeah, it's just brilliant. And if you've ever seen the screen test of Marlon Brando trying to become the Godfather, when he actually literally stuffs cotton wool balls into his cheeks, and his hair was really long, so what he did, he got some bulldog clips and pulled his hair back. And gets in the car.
We get the drift on that one. Yeah.
Daughter's wedding,
Donna's wedding.
That's how he spoke.
Donna's there.
Oh, brilliant! But a good choice. So when did you last watch that?
I have an annual festival of watching actually all three movies, and I don't think Godfather 3 is as bad as everyone thinks. It was a bit opaque as to what they were trying to say, but the first two are just genius. So every year I think I watch it again.
Now, if you'd have thought about that carefully, you'd have got a box set with all three in.
Oh yeah,
and taken that.
Yeah, but I like to think that if I wrote book 3, it would have been, or the film for book 3 for part 3 would have been slightly better. But again, they were hobbled by actors deciding not to do the project. So, they had, as a result, they didn't quite get the cast they wanted, and so they couldn't tell the story they wanted to tell. So it's a bit of a shame.
Somebody's phone's going off again, by the way.
Sorry about that.
This time.
That's great, but a great choice. And Rebecca, what's your DVD going to be?
Well, originally it was going to be my favourite film of all time, but I'm not taking that. So that my favourite film of all time is The Life of Brian by the Monty Python team. Oh, fantastic! So you talk about being able to quote. I can do The Life of Brian. We're all individuals. I'm not.
So why? Well, first, before you tell us the DVD you are taking, why aren't you taking that one?
Because I thought I'd pick something that's longer. And so I'd get more out of, and also I thought of something that would give me comfort, because I think I will need comforting when I'm on the island.
I've just looked down to see what it is. Oh God, no.
So have you ever seen this?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh, right. So this is my favourite TV show ever, and I would watch it and watch it and watch it over and over again. The Gilmore Girls.
The Gilmore Girls.
Wow. Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Wow.
It's quite simple. I seem to like simple things. It's just a mother and a daughter in a small town in America, and it's just their lives. That's all it is. The girl is a teenager at school, and the mother is a single mother bringing up a daughter, and they're just wonderful characters. And the mother's completely dippy, so I think I relate to her. She loves coffee. The daughter loves reading. She loves books. They're sort of slightly quirky. It's comfort TV. So while you're busy looking at people putting horses' heads in bed, I'll be having some comfort TV with the Gilmore Girls.
Well, again, we've got quite a difference there, haven't we, between the Gilmore Girls and the
spectrum, aren't they?
But great choices. So next, obviously, this is a fictional island, so we can go a bit mad, and we can. We're now thinking on foods or ingredients, so it might be a particular ingredient that you like, or it could be a favourite meal that just keeps coming back and never goes away, kind of thing. So, Adrian, what is your food or ingredient going to be?
Oh, I'm such a foodie as well. I can't tell by the 8 chins, but I'm going to go with marzipan, chocolate marzipan.
I suggested that, and you poo-pooed it.
Well, I know, I couldn't decide, but in the end, if I were to cross continents for one thing, it would be chocolate marzipan, especially that sort of quite expensive German brand.
The town that Luke's been to.
Meerdicker or Meerdicker.
No, Luke. Because of the L.
Yeah. Anyway,
they're famous for their marzipan. They are. The town is well known for it.
Well, anyway.
So how long have you had the addiction to marzipan?
Oh, since I was a tiny. Well, I still have a real issue with chocolate. I am diabetic, and I'm having to cut it out completely. But it's so hard because I will do stupid things to get to certain types of chocolate. But when I was about 17, I went to the doctor. This is not a joke. Went to the doctor. And he said, and he recommended. I had hypnotherapy to try and get my chocolate addiction overcome, because I was eating 3 or 4 chocky bars a day, and I pretty much have kept that up all my life, actually, if I'm honest. But I just started. It was that point in your life where it starts to show around the middle, age 17, 18, I think, and so I went to get some hypnotherapy. It didn't work at all, fortunately. But yeah, it has to be chocolate. So chocolate marzipan.
Chocolate marzipan.
And I can't stand the marzipan. I can't even stand the sight of it, the smell of it. So you'll be happy because I won't be trying to eat any.
You won't need to share it. Yeah, that's one point, I suppose, of choosing that. I have. So what's yours going to be, Rebecca?
Very different again. And I have it here too.
Surprise. You've got it with you. What is it?
Cabbage.
Pickled cabbage.
I love it. I would eat this every day. I mean, I sometimes do eat it every day. Love pickled cabbage. I couldn't live without it on the island. So I'm taking an enormous jar, not this jar, because this would last me about 3 days. An enormous jar of pickled cabbage, if I can, please.
And what is your favourite thing to have with pickled cabbage?
Mature cheddar cheese. So I've been known to have a bowl of pickled cabbage and then some little lumps of mature cheese and eat it with a fork. And that's a dinner. Wow. Delicious.
And as you say, very different from chocolate marzipan.
You don't like pickled cabbage, do you?
No, not
really. Well, that's very clever because
we are yin and yang, aren't we?
Won't need to share. So
sweet and savoury.
Yeah, that's
because like true. Chocolate, I can take chocolate or leave it. I might have one piece of chocolate every other day, but yeah. I can't live without cheese and pickles and onions.
At least it's nothing weird like pickles and chocolate together or something.
Oh no, that's wrong.
Like that. No, which
I do use some very strange combinations, but.
Yeah. I've heard people mention that one, but no, not for me. So now the big one, and obviously because it is a fictional island, you can be as big or as small and weird as you want to be, but it's your luxury item. So what are you taking as your luxury item, Adrian?
Well, it's there's a clue into one of my earlier books. So I'd like to take a darts set, proper, high class boards. Darts, I wouldn't use them to kill animals or anything like that. Just so that when I return from the island, I'll learn certain things. My quiz knowledge would have been great. I'll come back with the secrets of stories secreted away, but I'll also be getting my darts average up from the desultory 35 that it is at the moment into the 70s, so that I can actually play competitively.
Golden top.
Yeah,
I know why you want to do that. So you've got the A to Z of almost everything, and you've got your dartboard. You're just waiting for Bullseye to come back, aren't you?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. Absolutely. If I could, I would crawl over hot coals to try and get on something like Bullseye. Yeah,
you just want a speedboat, don't you? Here's what you put in.
Speedboat, yeah. Mini metro. Yeah.
That's true. Very, very impressive. A dartboard.
A great car.
I can just see Jim Bowen now saying, "Here's what you could have won."
Yeah, but I watched the very first episode. It was on Quest TV of Bullseye, and I think you can get it on BritBox now.
Yeah.
Anyway, the first episode, and they were like, they went home with £100, and that was the big mega prize, £100. It's hilarious. Oh, you've done very well there. You've earned yourself £5. And it's like,
what? Didn't they used to win cash?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't forget, you get darts. Yeah, so
they always had to see, but even if they didn't win it, they still had to see the main prize. It was
look what you could have won.
Yeah, well, you won, but here's what you could have won. So that was so funny. I actually met Jimbo once in a caravan site in Morecambe many years ago, but he'd been appearing on the front in Morecambe, and he must have just this must have been like his drinking hole where he went back to, and he was a very nice man. He didn't stay long, but he was a very nice gent. And again, he's got an amazing story to tell as well. What some of the things that he did in his lifetime. But anyway, so you're taking your dartboard, and your dart paraphernalia, shall we call it? So what is yours going to be, Rebecca?
I think we're people of simple needs, aren't we? Really, because
me.
Have you got a
very
well?
Sketch, pad, and pen. So I can draw and write.
Yeah.
And I would draw lots of things as well, including you.
God.
Life story.
Yeah, Lucian Freud kind of thing going on there.
That's all I would need to keep me happy. As long as it'd have to be endless supply of paper and pens, but
yeah,
that's all I need.
yeah. We can throw a bit of magic, so as you know, the new pens and new paper just keep reappearing. We can do that when it's a fictional island. I'm the same with a red cabbage. You know, we'll just make sure there's, you know,
Excellent.
a good supply. Well, they're all great choices. Now, Donna was in the hot seat last week, so she's had this question herself put to her, along with, you know, with Linda. So I've got one extra question for these special shows, and you're gonna hate me for this one because especially with you being publishers. But if you were allowed to take one author to the island with you, who would it be?
Oh.
And why? Well, and more importantly, why?
One of our authors, or any author?
Any author, dead or alive.
All right,
they'd be alive when you took them, but you know.
Right, I'd take Tom Baker, Fourth Doctor.
Wow. And why is that?
Because he is the best raconteur ever. I mean, the stories, the scrapes, the things he's got up to, he'd just be brilliant. And he's got a notoriously unreliable memory as well. So, you know, he even forgot on one occasion he bumped into somebody and it turned out it was his ex-wife and he didn't know who it was. So, you know, it was kind of, yeah, I think he
would entertain us, wouldn't he?
Absolutely. So I'd want something really entertaining. And yeah, Tom Baker, who not only written his autobiography, but has been writing, he wrote a Doctor Who story recently, novel. So I think with him though, you know, you get the sense that he knows the sands of time are finally running thin. He looks so gaunt now. He's lost a lot of weight recently. So we're not
going to be on the island for long.
No,
then.
so I want to just hear from being a monk to being, you know, on a building site when he got selected as Doctor Who.
Oh, he's got a fascinating,
amazing story.
Yeah,
and he was big drinking buddies with all that Soho set like Richard Harris and Peter O'Toole and people like that. So, yeah, it'd be good fun.
Be great fun. That be wonderful. And what about you, Rebecca? What is your author of choice? Who is going to be your author of choice?
I think for me it would be Charles Dickens, because I thought you
were going to say Charlie Chaplin for a minute.
I thought you were going to say Douglas Adams.
Douglas Adams would be brilliant. Now I'm reading a Douglas Adams at the moment. Actually, can I change to Douglas Adams?
You can imagine him.
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to?
Yeah, because I've read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I'm reading now I can't remember the title, but it's about his sort of searching for almost extinct animals around the world.
Wow.
And it is brilliant. He's funny, he's intelligent, it's a really good read. So what I've heard about him, he would be another great person along with Tom Baker to have with us.
yeah. I think your evenings are going to be very a lot of entertainment and a lot of stories will be told.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's great choices. So Tom Baker and Douglas Adams and the two of you all sat around the campfire. So we can pick
Marzipan and pickled cabbage.
And they knew each other well as well. They worked on Doctor Who together.
Oh, there you go. So they could
yeah.
There you go. But great choices, all great choices, all your books and everything. And I'm sure you will not want to be rescued from this island because
perfect.
You've got everything you need. So, but who's going to publish your books? You need to, you know.
Baby, my youngest.
You have to get the children to publish your books while you're away.
They can do it. Yeah, they can do it. And James as well. I mean, we've got between us. First. There's 5 boys between us. I think they could take over.
Right, definitely. Now, before we go, perhaps, well, first of all, do you want to tell us, for people who haven't maybe heard of Hobeck, you know, the very few people who haven't heard of Hobeck in the world, maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about, you know, where they can contact you on the internet, social media, where they can listen to the Hobcast. And you know how they can get in touch.
Okay, well, the central hub of everything Hobeck is www.hobeck.net, our website. Everything sort of spins off from that. We're active on, we have a Facebook group for Hobeck Books. We have a very active Twitter feed, which you basically
I'm the tweeter.
And the Instagrammer. The podcast is on every podcast platform, whether that's Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. We've got our own place for that. So yeah, if you go to the website, you'll find everything you need to know about us and the books and the authors, and we've got things to buy there, and details of our
just
audiobooks.
send us an email and say hi.
Yeah, we're not aloof, as you've discovered. Far from it. We that's actually one of the things we love about if we were to go back to one of your earlier questions about things we love, it's the sort of doors that running a publishing house kind of opens. The people you meet, whether they're the authors, fellow publishers, the wider book community.
Oh, the readers.
Readers, the bookshops, you name it. We've built a new network in the last 18 months through having a publishing house, and it's just wonderful. Yeah.
Great. And it's great to hear your story, because I say most publishers, they're like, for want of a better word, put behind closed doors, where you're out there, you're in the open, you're visiting people, you're talking to people like myself and Donna and lots of other places.
Tremendous energy from talking and going to see people and building those connections. It makes it all. Otherwise, it's the two of us sitting across the desk. And it's what's the point of that? So
and it gives us an insight into behind. Everybody's always intrigued with finding out behind the scenes of different businesses and TV shows and all the rest of it. And I think you both very well put across some of the goings on of behind the scenes, so that's great. So just finally, what have we got? Or obviously you probably can't sort of, well, first of all, if anybody's sat on a hot what they feel is a hot future bestseller, how do they what's the process as regards submissions and getting in touch with you?
Well, we opened the window again last September, just a couple of months ago, and we're working through all of those submissions at the moment. And to be honest, it's quite an overwhelming thing, because we read very carefully everything that we get. So at the moment it's closed, just so that we can get through the backlog, and also to stop overwhelm. Really, we have with us, only the two of us working on Hobeck. It's difficult for us to imagine getting much bigger than we are at the moment in terms of, we've always, our ambition by the end of year 2 was to have 20 authors. We're going to have those, no problem. So sadly, at the moment, we're not taking submissions. We will, all being equal, open them again next year sometime.
There will be a period.
So keep looking at the submissions page. We'll make it published.
And we tweet about it.
We'll make it a splash. But realistically, it's something that we didn't really want to do, close submissions.
No.
But we've just found it overwhelming, because if they're constantly open, we'd never stop. We'd never get on with anything else.
There's only so many hours in a day, isn't there? So
yeah. And we're going to be doing the festivals again next year, and people just come and see us. Grab us and say, you've heard about the company, and just if you want to pitch something.
That's a good way to do it. Is just introduce yourself and talk about what you're doing.
Ultimately, what we're looking for is a combination of things. Really well written book, but people we just want to work with and believe in their work as well. Nice people
who are passionate about their writing
because it's a family when it boils down to it. Slightly different.
Hashtag Team Hobeck.
The family of Hobeck. But that's great. So now looking towards 2022, there's one person who you've got on your books who I think would be great at reading audiobooks, and that's Malcolm Hollingdrake. I think he could sell snow to Eskimos. Because he's just got a voice that you would just like transports you. You've got to get him doing something. You've got to get either his own or somebody else's.
Well, the irony is I've just narrated book one of I'm just editing at the moment, Catch As Catch Can of the Merseyside series. And you're right. I mean, actually, if I thought about it, that would have been a better option because I had to learn Scouse accents all the way through, and it's been quite challenging not sounding like Harry Enfield the whole time. No, you're right. I mean, we are very fortunate.
Chicken and a can of Coke.
Yeah, that's
But you've got to get him do, even if it's just a promo for a book or a promo for a company, because he's got a voice that could sell, snow to Eskimos, really could.
True. No, we're very fortunate. A lot of our authors are going to do their own books.
Yeah, and, we're very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to publish Lynn LaVerche's first novel as an audiobook. She's currently just started recording it, and it's just brilliant. So, and Ali Morgan is she's just a genius at the narration. Natural.
So you've given us some like little teasers, but what does two parts to this question. What does 2022 hold for you? And what is it that, what are you hoping to achieve in 2022? Say again, 2022.
Well, in the pipeline, we're aiming to publish the next in all the series, really, if we can.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of second in the series coming, haven't we?
Yeah, and part of the business model is to build those series so that you sell the first book and people buy the others, and then money starts to flow in a little more readily, I suppose. That's really the secret to it. So, I mean, the number one,
our non-fiction book.
Yes, yeah, we're writing a non-fiction book, and I suppose the headline act for Hobeck is Mr. Dawes. So we were hoping this year to publish the next one, Rock to Death. He's had a lot of business acting work get in the way of that. So that,
if you're watching, Uncle Bob,
we really hope the year of Rock to Death. But beyond that, we've definitely got new books from a number of our authors.
We've got quite a few in the spring, haven't we? In early summer. So
and we haven't yet signed, from our submissions pile, we haven't signed anybody new yet.
No.
So look out for those announcements.
Yeah, there could be 2 or 3 new books from new people.
New authors, yeah.
So,
I think the number one thing for us though is, we're still a startup company. Getting the company to break even would be joyful. Moving to profit, hopefully, in the first half of the next year. But I think that it's really unclear as to where the margins are going to come from, because I think the squeeze is on. So, I think what we've always had this idea that if we got Hobeck to the point where we had 1,000 people who bought every book that we ever buy, and there are some people who do buy every book that we do, great loyalty. And if we had 1,000 of those, then every book we publish is break even straight away. And that's the goal. That's the aim, is that we get to that point. And for every individual author, we build them an army of fans who snap up everything they do. And so we have a lot of first-time authors, and we have some more established names like Malcolm on our books. We're trying to sort of have a spread of new and established names. But ultimately, we want to be able to look back and say, look the rest of the publishers in the eye and make a splash and make them sit up and say, wow,
who are these Hobeck people?
Yeah, that's it.
And why have they got such a cute cat?
Can I suggest you take on a couple of Caribbean authors as well next year, because it would be great for you. You get nice holidays then. You could go out to the Caribbean then.
Well,
when you're doing Hobcast.
Lewis Hastings in New Zealand, so he's the next for a big trip.
Yeah, we've got to visit Linda Huber in Switzerland too, and Sue on the Isle of Wight.
And we're going to take Robert back to Gibraltar. at some point. So
we were going to do that right at the beginning, weren't we? And then COVID hit, so we couldn't go to Gibraltar.
We were going to do Robert Dawes' Gibraltar, make a TV show out of it, which would be hilarious.
No, we do try and pick authors who live by the seaside.
Yeah,
and quite a few of them do.
But surely it'd be much better to go to Gibraltar than go and see Malcolm in Wigan.
Yeah, but then you see, if I ever got to the point and came off the islands as a really good darts player, they play a lot of tournaments in Wigan.
You can stay in Malcolm's house then.
Yeah, I can stay with Malcolm, just popping out to go and play Malcolm van Gerwen.
Did you say Malcolm?
The Robin Park Tennis Centre or wherever it is, it's in Wigan.
It is. But that's great, and it's been wonderful talking to you, as well as not just hearing about your book choices and, you know, the things that you take to the island, but also to get that inside knowledge, so to speak, about, you know, about publishing and the process and, you know, what it takes and what you've got sort of planned for the future. And I look forward to hearing and seeing lots about it in the future. Now, unfortunately, at the end of this, it will go off straight away, so I'm not just blotting you out, but if I don't cut it off straight away, sometimes I lose the recording. I don't want to lose the recording.
No, we don't.
But I've actually got carried away there and asking all my own questions, and I forgot to ask Donna, who's been waiting patiently for her questions. So I'm sorry, Donna, but fire away.
No, it's fine. I can't think of anything. So
we've already been Donnaed anyway. So
yeah, you have been Donnaed. Yeah, well and truly Donnaed. But thank you for joining us in the audience, Donna.
If you want to lend Trixie to anyone, we would be very happy to volunteer.
Yeah, thank you, Donna and Trixie, for being in the audience. But most of all, thank you, Adrian and Rebecca. Have a great Christmas.
You too.
I've already got an email through about something that's coming out in February from you. So already we're into 2022 and looking forward to seeing lots of good stuff coming from you in publication and in, you know, in the Hobcast, etc. So thank you, and hope you all have a great Christmas.
You too,
Thank
Joe.
you. Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.